What's up, guys? Gavin here, and today I'm going to talk about the AP Top 25. Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, to be fair, it's not terrible. I mean, there's always room for modifications. I'm sure everybody can agree on that, but I genuinely am all right with, the top three, with Alabama being number one, which makes sense. There's a lot of people out there right now arguing why Alabama, and I mean, I honestly agree with Alabama being number one because they're returning the best defensive player in the country in Will Anderson Jr., and they're returning arguably the best quarterback. There's the debate between Stroud and Young right now, but I would say Young, Young and Anderson, they're returning both of them. Plus, a lot of Alabama's defense is returning, as well as Alabama getting one of the best running backs in the nation from Georgia Tech and Jahmyr Gibbs. And they have Burton, and then I'm sure there's going to be some wide receivers that come out of nowhere because it's Alabama. I think Alabama is the clear-cut number one. I mean, Saban last year called it a rebuild year just a couple of weeks ago. And I really think Alabama is going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. They're going to be more veteran. And honestly, some interesting statistic is that there hasn't been a class that hasn't won a ring yet in Alabama under Saban in the college football era, college football playoff era. And so I think that this is the number one Alabama team right there. I think Alabama deserves the number one shot. Now, Ohio State, I agree with being number two. Why? Because I think Ohio State has the talent on offense to be incredible. I mean, you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the nation. And then you have C.J. Stroud. You have Henderson, who is, I think he had, I know he for sure had 1,200. I can't remember if he had 1,600, but I know he had 1,200 yards for sure of scrimmage yards. And they got the guy from Oklahoma State. They have the Oklahoma State defensive coordinator now. And with Ohio State's talent, I just think Ohio State will be even better this year than they were last year. And I don't think they're losing to Michigan again at the end of the year. I agree with Ohio State being number two. Georgia, they lost a lot of players to the draft last year. And honestly, I don't think I agree with them being number three, because they could still very well be a college football playoff team, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be quite as insane as they were last year. They lost too much talent. I mean, yeah, you could try to replace them with 5-star freshmen, but I think they lost too much talent. And it'll be interesting to see how Stetson Bennett does, because, I mean, personally, I'm not sold on him yet. I still am not sold on Stetson Bennett. I mean, he literally sucked his first year back in 2020. And then last year, he had JT Daniels coaching him like literally every single drive after he pretty much took JT Daniels' job. I honestly don't think... I think he's a game manager, but I don't think he's anything special. And I think that could cost Georgia in a game, perhaps. Maybe even the Oregon game. Oregon's defense looked amazing in the spring game. They have Noah Sewell, and they have, just a lot of talent on that defense for Oregon. But we'll see. Now, here's where the AP poll gets... The next three teams, I definitely do not agree with their rankings. I don't think Clemson's the fourth best team in the nation. Defensively, they are. I think they have a college football championship defense. But I honestly don't think DJ Uiagalelei is going to be any better than he was last year. Who knows? Maybe he proves me wrong, but I think he's going to stall. And the ACC is, they produce some monster defensive linemen. I don't think Clemson's going to... I don't know if Clemson can fully rely on the run game to carry them either. So I honestly don't think Clemson's going to finish the year in the college football playoff. Now, they could prove me wrong, but based on last year, I don't know why DJ Uiagalelei is still a freaking starter, man. He literally had almost a 1-to-1 ratio. I think he even had one more pick than he had touchdown. He was pathetic as a quarterback last year. He looked amazing when Trevor Lawrence was out with COVID in 2020, and then he looked completely different in 2021. And I honestly don't believe in him at all. In fact, I honestly don't think Clemson's gonna. I think Clemson needs to focus on winning their conference first, which I think the ACC will be more competitive as we have Virginia, possibly a newfound Miami with Mario Cristobal in the mix, and then NC State and Louisville could make some noise. Virginia Tech, it doesn't make sense to me that Clemson would end in the college football playoff, but who knows, maybe they will. But yeah, I disagree with number 4. I'd probably have them in the teens, honestly. Notre Dame, I did read a funny comment on this one today. Somebody said they're just ranking Notre Dame to be in the top 5 so that they can claim the Ohio State and Notre Dame to be a top 5 matchup. I honestly think Notre Dame is definitely going to drop the ranks pretty quickly. They have a tough schedule. They have a really tough schedule, and I think they're losing week 1 to Ohio State, and honestly, I'd be shocked if it was even remotely close. I honestly think Ohio State's going to take care of business against Notre Dame, but who knows? Notre Dame is a team that can play to the level of their competition, but I honestly think Ohio State will handily beat Notre Dame, and that ranking won't last. Texas A&M, I am not sold on Texas A&M. I know I sound super biased, but they didn't get as many 5 stars the year before in the recruiting class, but you could argue that they had talent and the last couple of years under Jimbo Fisher, and look what they've done. They had the COVID year where they actually did do not too bad, but last year they were 8-4, and then they couldn't play in the bowl game because of COVID issues and stuff. But I honestly do not think Texas A&M is gonna. I honestly don't think Texas A&M is gonna finish as a top 6 team. I think they're for sure gonna lose to Alabama, and Texas A&M just, I just don't buy them. I honestly think they're gonna lose at least 2, maybe 3 games this year. I'm just not sold. I just don't think they've put together the talent. Who knows? Honestly, though, I think whoever ends up in that quarterback will be better than Calzada was last year. But honestly, I'm not sold on Texas A&M yet. I could see them as a top 15, but I don't know if I see them as a top 10 quite yet. Better yet, top 6. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them, but I think, like I said, they're probably going to lose 2 to 3 games. They're probably not going. They're definitely not going to beat Alabama again this year, and I just, I don't agree with A&M being 6. Utah number 7. I kind of like that actually. I think Utah is a top 10 team this year for sure. I think Cameron Rising 9-2 as the starter last year. And to be fair, he was injured for the rest of the Ohio State game. He got injured in that 4th quarter. I think he's going to lead the offense to great heights. They have a great running game. They have a really good 3-star running back freshman who is gonna probably be a running back 3. A lot of buzz in camp. They have 2 of the best tight ends in the nation. I think Utah is going to make some noise, but it starts with week 1 when they take on Florida in the Swamp. And so I think Utah could be a dangerous player in the Pac-12 again. Yeah, I think they can certainly win that Pac-12 championship again. But maybe they can be the Pac-12's first team since since Washington to make it into the playoff again. Michigan at number 8, I disagree with. I think Michigan should be ranked higher, to be honest. I think that it is kind of disrespectful that they are below Texas A&M and Notre Dame and Clemson when they were a college football playoff team last year. I honestly don't think they're going to win the Big Ten again. Better yet, be Ohio State again. But I can see them as an 11-1 team, and even then, 10-2. That's still quality enough to be above number 8 over on the rankings. I think Michigan is kind of disrespected right here, and I think I would have Michigan higher as well, and that brings me down to Oklahoma. I too feel like Oklahoma should definitely be above Texas A&M and Clemson. I think Oklahoma is going to continue dominance. I think they're going to probably have a great shot at having a 10-digit win, a double-digit win season, 10 wins probably. They're returning, they're Oklahoma. Brett, their coach, he is good. I'm not going to butcher his name because I can't pronounce his name for the life of me, but he's going to take care of this team. I mean, the defense he coached with Clemson and then his history with Oklahoma, how Oklahoma's defense shut down Oregon last year in that bowl game. I think Oklahoma is going to still be a great team in that Big 12 conference. And I think Dylan Gabriel is amazing. He's a remarkable quarterback. And I think he's going to create a lot of explosion with that Oklahoma offense, enough to that, Oklahoma may not be a college football playoff team per se, but they are certainly in the mix for that New Year's 6, in my opinion. And I like Oklahoma being higher than 9. Baylor. I like Baylor at number 10. Baylor, I feel, is going to be really good this year. They have a great shot at getting 10 wins again as well. They have a tough road game in Lavelle Edwards Stadium in their second week, but if they can take care of Big 12 play, I think that they have a great shot at 10 wins and competing for that Big 12 title. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Blake Shapen area, but I like what Dave Aranda's doing down there, and I think Baylor should be in great shape for another great season. Oregon number 11. I like Oregon in the top 15. Everybody is sleeping on Oregon, in my opinion. I think that they could very well upset Georgia, in fact. Bo Nix, I think, is overhated. I think he was just playing with Auburn, and that was one of his issues was, sure, he's not C.J. Stroud, he's not Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's going to be a great quarterback with that Oregon offense, and I think that they're going to create some buzz and noise. They have some good quality receivers and tight ends in Oregon, in Eugene, and that defense looked monstrous in the spring game. I watched the spring game, and I'm excited to see what Noah Sewell does. And that Oregon offensive line, 4 of 5 starters are returning, if I remember correctly. And I'm excited to see what running backs, because we've only seen Verdell and Dye the last few years. I'm excited to see what running backs can step up for this Oregon team, which I'm sure they will. And I think Oregon should be in great shape to be, that number 2 team in the Pac-12. And honestly, they could, if things go their way, they could make the playoffs, in my opinion. That's a little bit of a stretch, but I think Oregon can certainly make the New Year's 6. That's not an unreasonable expectation for them. And I don't think they're going to fall off the cliff for losing Mario Cristobal. I think that they'll be just fine with what they got. And I think Bo Nix will surprise a lot of people this year. Oklahoma State, number 12. I like them in the top 15 as well. I think Oklahoma State also has a great shot at a 10-win season. Again, I do think Spencer Sanders is a little overrated, but I think he does get the job done. And it'll be interesting to see who continues the Chuba Hubbard and Jalen Warren era, who continues that great running back room that Oklahoma State seems to have. And I think that defense I think that even though they're going to have to get a new defensive coordinator, I think that Oklahoma State should still be, I think, an 8 to 10 wins team for sure. NC State, I like them in the top 15 too. I honestly thought NC State was overrated when I saw the final rankings, but after watching some NC State film, I like their defense. I'd like to see more from the offense, despite Devin Leary's 35-5 ratio for touchdown to interceptions last year. I don't know. It just felt like they had a lot of tight games last year, so I'd like to see more separation, but I think NC State definitely could be a player for that ACC championship, and it will be interesting to see. Now, one of the most interesting rankings on here, USC at number 14. USC, I think I think that they will probably win anywhere from 7 to 9 wins, get 7 to 9 wins. I think probably 8. I think 8 and 4 is probably the expectation for this USC team. Lincoln Riley, I think he can coach a great offense, and I know that they're going to have trench issues. At least that's what everybody seems to think. But they'll have Dye, they'll have Williams as the quarterback, who is arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, definitely the best freshman last year at quarterback. And I think Williams is going to do great things with that team. I do think that Addison will definitely be a good number 1 wide receiver option for him. And it will be interesting to see what they do with that offense. And they definitely have some defensive playmakers that they can definitely build off of. And it'll be interesting to see how Lincoln Riley's era kicks off. But I think that USC, I could see them finish ranked, honestly. I mean, they'll probably finish lower than 14th. Maybe they surprise me, go higher. They win 10 games, who knows? I mean, I honestly think 8 wins is probably the realistic expectation for them. And I honestly could see them finishing the season ranked. And it'll be interesting to see what SC does under Lincoln Riley. But honestly, this is a 4-8 team last season, so we don't know what's going to happen. But I think there's too much talent for them to be a losing team this year, despite having some question marks in the trenches and, on defense a little bit. But I think USC will finish ranked. Michigan State at number 15 is intriguing. Honestly, Michigan State, I feel like could probably have just the same of a season as they did last season. I like the run game, I like how they got Broussard out of Colorado to replace Kenneth Walker, and I like how good that defense was last year. And honestly, the quarterback, he does a great job. He's a good game manager. He knows how to find his receivers when he needs to. And I think Michigan State, I think that they should be in great shape for another top 25 finish again, and they could possibly contend again for the New Year's 6. I like Michigan State in the top 15, though. I agree with that. Miami, I am intrigued in because, they will have a full season. They'll have Mario Cristobal, Tyler Van Dyke now full time. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. I mean, Mario Cristobal certainly has recruited very well in his tenure so far. He can recruit. I'll give credit where it's due there. I don't know if I'm as bold to say that they're better than Wisconsin, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Wake Forest, and Pitt yet. I mean, I think it is fair to give them a top 25 ranking potentially. But even then, Iowa and Penn State aren't ranked. I honestly kind of think that Miami is a little high. But I can see them being ranked at the same time. I think they're just going to be a wait and see. Because honestly, we can talk the talk all we want, but honestly, the AP poll is going to be completely different after 3 to 4 weeks than it is now into the season. So it happens every year. Some of these teams are going to bust. Some teams are going to come out of nowhere. It's just how it is. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. And then Pitt below them. Pitt will be an interesting team to watch. You got Keaton Slovis coming in, but even then, he's not QB1 yet. I mean, he still has to battle it out with Nick Patty. But I mean, the assumption is he's going to take the job, but I mean, you can't guarantee it because honestly, when I was watching that spring game, I mean, granted, Slovis was still learning the offense at the time, but Slovis and Patty just both looked at the same level of terribleness. And, like I said, Pitt's defense is great. I mean, honestly, the fact that they, it's not easy to take on that defense, but still, like, I think that I would hope that if Slovis were to win that job, he looks a lot better than he did in that spring game because, boy, Pitt has a tough ACC ahead of them. And it'll be interesting to see if Slovis can fill in the holes of Kenny Pickett and what receivers. They have a couple of receivers that are pretty decent. I think that, I mean, they're going to have to definitely try to figure out how to fully replace the production of Jordan Addison. But yeah, I think Pitt can still be a player in the ACC for sure. And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for being in the top 20. Wisconsin in number 18. I like it. I would rank them above Miami. I think I'd like them in that 16 spot. Wisconsin, I mean, I'm not a Graham Mertz fan, but that run game that they have, that is deadly. And their defense is always incredible. You can always count on their offensive linemen as it, sometimes gets the nickname offensive lineman U. I think Wisconsin is a top 25 team for sure. And I think that they can easily finish, around their expected 8 to 10 wins. I expect great things from Wisconsin this season. And Arkansas, I like being ranked. Arkansas had a great finish, great season last year, good turnaround. Their head coach did a great job last year, and I really like Arkansas. They have a few tough matchups, conference and out-of-conference play. They have to go all the way to Provo, Utah in the middle of, in November, which is difficult considering the elevation of Utah and how cold it's going to be in October because Utah weather is ridiculous. But I think Arkansas can definitely finish in the top 25. And I think Arkansas, I like where they're at number 19. I think that's not too high for them. And I think that they can make some noise. Honestly, I think that they could definitely make some noise in the SEC this year. Kentucky is one that I am still trying to figure out. Kentucky has been pretty good the last year. Their defense has always been phenomenal these last few years. And I think Will Levis is okay. I think, he's overrated, to be honest. I mean, he is okay. I think he could be an NFL draft pick, but I don't think he's first round talent. He has physical traits, but he just, I don't know, there's some off vibe with him. I don't think he is quite NFL talent. I mean, there's a reason why he couldn't beat out Sean Clifford for the starting job at Penn State. It's just, but who knows? Maybe he has a bigger year than he did last year. He did have a great year last year. I will give him that, but I consider him more mid-draft talent than what many mock drafts are mocking him as, the third or fourth best quarterback, fifth best quarterback in this quarterback class coming up next year, but we'll see. Ole Miss, number 21, I like it. Ole Miss is a team I am very high on. They got Zach Evans out of TCU coming in, and they have some good wide receivers emerging in their fall camp right now. Check out some highlights on Twitter if you don't believe me. And Jackson Dart battling that 4-star that they had. I do apologize. I need to know my names better. But, I really do think that Ole Miss, I think that they could definitely make some noise with whoever wins that starting job. And I consider them a top 25 team for sure. I think 8 to 9 wins is definitely in the ballpark for them. Wake Forest at number 22. Now, Wake Forest will be interesting. They're not going to have Sam Hartman for a little bit, but that will be interesting to see what their backup can do. But their defense definitely took a step up, and they have a lot of offensive talent on that offense. I think that they will be, if their quarterback that steps in for Hartman can hold the ground just for those 4, 5, 6, however many games Hartman needs to miss. If Wake Forest can just hang in there, do what they can, because they were very good last year. They were phenomenal. Like at one point, with that 7-0 start that they had me convinced that they were going to be the next Clemson of the conference. But then, they had a couple of losses and, terrible beatdown in the ACC championship. But I think Wake Forest could certainly be a team that could make some noise this year again. And, it just comes down to if Hartman's backup can do his job and keep the team in games and win some key games. And I don't know what Wake Forest's schedule is, but I'm assuming it entails some easy cupcakes probably the first 3 games. So if he can just hold the ground, Hartman comes back for conference play, and they could very well, be players in that ACC. Cincinnati 23, there could be, I can imagine Cincinnati fans are frustrated with that, but I honestly do like Cincinnati at number 23. I think that they're losing a lot of the talent that they have. Luke Fickell's still a good enough coach, though, to earn the respect of being a top 25 team. Absolutely agree. And it will be interesting to see what Cincinnati does this year. They do have a transfer quarterback coming in to replace Ritter. I can't remember where he's from. It's something like Bowling Green or something. But, I can't remember. Or it may be one of the Michigan schools. But anyways, they have a transfer quarterback coming in to replace Ritter. And it will be interesting to see if they can replace Ford in that running back, Alec Pierce, Ahmed Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. They have a lot to replace. So them being 23 is completely understandable. And I think it's still respectful considering in respect to their college football playoff appearance last season. As well as Houston at 24. Houston beat Auburn in their bowl game, and honestly, that's enough for me to have respect for Houston. I think Houston definitely does deserve their top 24 ranking, and if they can be an SEC team, they certainly deserve to be ranked. I think Houston could definitely win 10 games again this season, and honestly, I think they could have a shot at taking the AAC this year. I think Cincinnati is going to really be mortaled down, especially since they take on Arkansas, which honestly, I don't know if they're going to beat Arkansas, to be honest. I do think Cincinnati was kind of favored a lot in their strength of schedule last year. Notre Dame plays to the level of their competition, which was the toughest team that they played. And then Cincinnati took on probably one of the weakest Big Ten schools right now in Indiana. And so it'll be interesting to see what Cincinnati can do against a real SEC team. And, a good out-of-conference team opponent. Because like I said, Notre Dame does play to the level of their competition. So, you can take a Notre Dame win as it is, but I think Cincinnati will have an interesting season, and I think Houston could very well win that conference. BYU, number 25. Now, that is interesting. I think BYU, it's tough to say for BYU because they have a brutal opening. They're going to play at USF, and now many people would say USF is an easy win, but honestly, UCF just named Gary Bohannon their starting quarterback earlier today, forcing Timmy McClain to transfer. BYU has to face Baylor the next week, and then they travel to Eugene, and then at one point in the season they'd go to Vegas October 8th to take on Notre Dame, and then they have to take on Arkansas in October. And now, like I said, it could be a tough game for Arkansas, but it also could be a tough game for BYU because SEC talent. BYU did not face any SEC teams these last few years, so it'll be interesting to see what BYU stacks up against for the SEC. And so I think BYU, solid 9-3, 8-4 team in my opinion. I think that they could finish ranked, but it will be interesting to see. Let's dive into the teams that definitely did deserve to be ranked. Iowa and Penn State. 100% both of them deserve to be ranked, and I'm disappointed that they're not ranked, to be honest. Iowa especially, because they were Big Ten runner-ups. They were literally 10-2 and lost in the they did lose in the Big Ten championships, but they were in the Big Ten championships. You're gonna exclude the Big Ten runner-up from the. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me at all that they're excluding the Big Ten runner-up from the top 25. Iowa, I think, is going to break into the top 25 in no time. Some of these teams will definitely probably drop out. I could have been wrong about my analysis on some of these teams, and next thing you know, they're unranked in week 4, week 5. I think Iowa's going to break in. Penn State will be interesting to see because they have the talent. They have the talent to be a top 25 team, but last year they had such a bad ending to their season. Now, healthy Sean Clifford can make the difference. He just knows how to utilize that system and make it work to win. And so, therefore, I think if they can have a healthy Sean Clifford, if they can find that run game again, what made them so good back then was when they had Journey Brown, Sanders, Saquon Barkley. Like, they need to find that guy again, because the guys that they've had these last 2 years have been, I think it's fair to say, disappointing. They've not lived up to the standard of Penn State football. And so I think that it will be important to have Penn State. It will be interesting to see what Penn State does, but I think Penn State can also break into the top 25. Let's see the other teams that are receiving votes. I think that, honestly, I think that the other rankings are pretty fair. I would argue that Washington could probably make a rise. I think Washington's going to have a great season this year and begin to get back to where they should be. ASU could be a sleeper team with Emory Jones at quarterback. West Virginia with JT Daniels. And now I can talk about JT Daniels in another video, but he is certainly overhated. And anybody who says that he sucks is ignorant, because he was 7-0 as the starter at Georgia, 17-5 touchdown interception ratio. And the dude just balled. I mean, he literally led them to victory after victory that year. Stetson Bennett literally choked them out of the playoff race. And then he literally beat Cincinnati, whose defense was, we saw how good their defense was last year. Cincinnati did good as Notre Dame did against Alabama the year before in the playoffs. And now, like I said, Cincinnati, yes, maybe a little overrated, but I still think Cincinnati, with the talent that they had, was a top 10 team last year, top 15 team. And therefore, JT beating Cincinnati in that Georgia-Cincinnati New Year's 6 game. I'm just going to say, I don't think Stetson Bennett would have beaten Clemson last year, to be honest. I'm being frank. I don't think Stetson Bennett, when he plays a good defense, I honestly don't think he would have beaten Clemson last year. And JT Daniels has a top 10 win over Clemson. Now, granted, that defense did a great job, but at the end of the day, we also saw how terrible G.J. Uiagalelei was as well. But I honestly think Clemson is, not Clemson, but JT Daniels. I think he and West Virginia, I wouldn't rule them out, to be honest. I can see them breaking into the top 25 with 9 wins. Easy. JT Daniels, his chapter's not over, and I think he's gonna have a great season this year. And I'm high on JT Daniels, and I'll talk about him probably in another video. But I honestly, everybody's saying that he sucks, that he's a bum, whatever. They don't know what they're talking about. It's flat out. Look at the stats. Look how good he was as the quarterback. I think it just came down to favoritism and Stetson Bennett being healthy enough that he was able to be the favorite by Coach. I think Kirby Smart really wanted a good Rudy story. I think that it was favoritism, hands down. JT Daniels was clearly the better quarterback. He was coaching Stetson Bennett after every drive. Well, I mean, every drive that I saw Stetson Bennett, I always saw him talking to JT Daniels on the sideline, like JT Daniels coaching him, like a Chase Daniel to Justin Herbert kind of a thing, And I saw, I saw Stetson Bennett only hit the open targets. Like Brock Bowers would be open by like 1,000 yards, and that's where he would find Brock Bowers. Like I think he was lucky and blessed. Like Spencer Petras from Iowa could make that Georgia offense look amazing. Graham Mertz can make that Georgia offense look amazing. I think there's more to the story than Stetson Bennett being a good quarterback. I honestly, I think Stetson, I'm not going to take anything away from Stetson completely. I think Stetson, he deserves to be on that Georgia roster for sure. And I think he isn't terrible. But at the end of the day, I didn't think he was better than JT Daniels. And it will be interesting to see what happens. Boise State is a team I'm watching for to bounce into the top 25. I certainly could see Fresno State, Utah State even. Utah State is adding so much talent from the transfer portal again. They have a lot of returning talent. Logan Bonner, better than Jordan Love. As a Utah resident, yeah, he's better than Jordan Love. I watch all the Utah teams, guys. I know. And I think UCLA could make some noise potentially, but even then, I honestly think that UCLA is going to just have the same exact season as they did last year, 8-4, 9-3, somewhere around that ballpark. Kansas State will be interesting to watch. They have Adrian Martinez as the quarterback now. And then Auburn, it'll be interesting to see if they can make it work. Last year, they had a terrible ending to the season. And Purdue, I'm watching for Purdue. Aiden O'Connell, I think he is the deal. And they had that crazy controversial win over Tennessee to end that season. How will they do this upcoming season? UCF, I think UCF can definitely make the top 25 again too. That's a team I'm watching for in that AAC, newcomer to the Big 12 eventually. I think UCF definitely has potential to make some noise. LSU will be interesting to see how Brian Kelly coaches that team. They have the talent to win 8 games, but we'll see if they can pull it together. It's his first season. I think that they will definitely be a winning team. I don't know if they'll be top 25 caliber, but I honestly am high on that team. San Diego State could definitely make it. South Carolina will be interesting to see what Spencer Rattler and his fellow Oklahoma tight end transfer do there and what they can do to replace Harris, the running back. But yeah, and honestly, I really do like what I'm seeing. Florida could definitely break in. I'm going to be honest, I'm not completely sold on AR-15. Excuse me, Adrian Richardson. But I think, he does have talent to him though. Like, I don't think he's a first rounder, but I think he could definitely keep that team pretty relevant. But I think for Florida, it comes down to how they do against Utah and how they fare in that conference. But yeah, a lot of teams, guys, that I covered. Sorry, I kind of just spilled the ear out on this. I really enjoyed covering this, and if this video doesn't get that many views because it's 39 minutes long, then it is what it is. I got better with my analysis, and it was good for me to talk about this. Sorry, I'm just making sure I covered all of the teams that I wanted to cover. Texas was right under Tennessee, second in the most receiving votes outside of the AP top 25. Texas will be interesting to see what. I don't know what to do, how to judge Quinn Ewers yet. I mean, he transferred away from Ohio State, which honestly doesn't look good to me. Honestly, he wasn't willing to sit with competition, desperate for that for that starting job, which is the landscape for college football nowadays. But I think Texas. I think Texas. We'll see if they can finish games. We'll see if they can finish games because they were the Atlanta Falcons of the college football last year. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Texas as they make way for the Arch Manning era coming up soon. I mean, Arch Manning is a senior this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Well, guys, I know some of my opinions are probably going to be controversial. And if enough of you watch it, you guys could create some buzz in the comments and attack me, belittle me, whatever you guys need to do. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I appreciate your support. I just appreciate you guys watching. And I hope you all have a great night. And take care, guys.